Welcome to Resistance Live. Since 2017, Resistance Live has been the go-to home for political and legal news and analysis through a decidedly progressive activist lens. I'm your host, Elizabeth Cronise McLaughlin. I'm a former Wall Street and human rights lawyer, a lifelong organizer, and a leadership and impact consultant for all those seeking to lead big progressive change in these incredibly challenging times. To get bonus broadcasts, ask questions, and more, don't forget to become a paid subscriber to the show at patreon.com/resistancelive. And to learn more about what we do to help progressive leaders everywhere, check out GaiaLeadershipProject.com. And now, here's today's show. Hey everyone. So today was one of those days when I was getting ready for the show this morning where I was like, wow, it really feels like it's kind of a slow news day. And I should have known better than to jinx it, because we have some very significant breaking news this morning, including news that just broke literally 2 minutes ago while I was getting ready to come on the air. So earlier this morning, about an hour and a half ago, the FBI announced that they had made an arrest in the pipe bombing allegations, this huge mystery that has gone on now for almost 5 years, of the pipe bombs that were planted outside the RNC and the DNC the night before January 6th. And you all will remember, and you have all doubtless seen, including in my thumbnail this morning here on YouTube, photographs of this person in a white hoodie or a gray hoodie with a mask, with black pants, sneakers, carrying a bag. This is these photographs and these videos are things that have become familiar to all of us in the last almost 5 years. So apparently this morning at around 8:30 a.m., the FBI arrested a man in Woodbridge, Virginia. For those of you who don't know, Woodbridge is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And apparently the D.C. FBI field office was involved in this, along with potentially field offices from surrounding jurisdictions. Just about 5 minutes ago, we learned the name of the person who has been arrested. It is a man by the name of Brian Cole. Now, I have to caution everybody, because I've already started researching this, that there are quite a number of Brian Coles in Fairfax County, Virginia. So we have to be extremely cautious about attributing this person's identity to one of those folks without knowing exactly who it is. But I do want to just mention a couple of things here that I think are worth considering. Kash Patel is currently the head of the FBI, as we all know. He has been for a very long time a conspiracy theorist about this particular series of pipe bombs that were left around Washington, D.C., including in proximity to then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris on the night before the January 6th riot. And in fact, there has been quite a bit of disinformation spewed by Kash Patel over the years, as well as the Deputy FBI Director, Dan Bongino. I was looking at the names this morning and I was like, how did we get here? Which is, like a very common reaction I have these days when I look at the names of government officials. But nonetheless, they have shared various conspiracy theories over the years about January 6th and the events leading up to it. So I, like many folks, I'm extremely wary of this new development. And again, I have to remind you that it is unclear at this point the role that Kash Patel had in this investigation since he became the director of the FBI, whether or not the information that we're being provided is reliable. We have no idea what the information or evidence is that led to the arrest of this particular individual. And I think there's a lot of reason for caution around this. Again, just a quick reminder that this is a moment, like many other over the last year, where bad actors will exploit this kind of moment to spout all kinds of disinformation. And I will say one other thing. Just this morning on Blue Sky, like literally within the last hour, there have been, I am not kidding, hundreds and hundreds of posts claiming that Trump will pardon whomever this individual turns out to be. I again have to remind everybody that we do not know what is going to happen next. We know almost nothing at this point about the evidence that has led to this person's arrest. We only in the last 7 minutes know this person's name. So please understand that, doomerism and this kind of cynicism is often put into the information ecosphere with the intention of intentionally dividing people, putting them into a place of despair, making people feel like things are a foregone conclusion. We do not know anything from a factual perspective other than what I have literally just told you. Somebody was arrested at 8:30 this morning in Woodbridge, Virginia by the name of Brian Cole. That's it. So I want everyone to be extremely wary of additional information that you may see on social media about this today, and also, frankly, to be extremely wary about the information that comes out of the FBI concerning this arrest or this individual. This is truly a situation where all bets are off. And I am inherently suspicious of law enforcement to begin with, as those of you who've been with me for almost the last 9 years know. And I am especially suspicious in this circumstance, given who is in charge of the FBI. So I saw another reporter out there claiming like, woo, the mystery has been solved. I'm sorry, the mystery has not been solved yet. The mystery will not be solved unless and until someone is tried before a jury of their peers and convicted. Okay. So again, very, very important right now to be cautious, very important to be wary, and very important, by the way, here on this feed, because I'm watching people do it already, to not share anything that isn't confirmed. Okay. There's a lot of people spouting a lot of speculation right now about this. Okay. We do not know anything, until it is submitted into evidence in a court of law. Okay. So again, please, there are people spouting rumors, people spouting theories, people claiming that evidence was collected in certain ways. If you are not actually on the evidence collection team for something like this, you should not be posting information about it online. Okay. And again, wait for a full and complete picture. I have to say that I am reminded right now that there have been circumstances in very recent history. I'm talking about the assassination. I don't like to call it an assassination. Let's just call it a murder. The murder of Charlie Kirk, okay, where someone was arrested on site that people claimed was the shooter. And then that person was released within a matter of hours because law enforcement got it wrong. All right. So again, please be very wary of what you read. Exercise caution. Do not share things that you do not know are confirmed online. All right. And please be very, very wary of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are going to be infected with the disinformation that somehow there's a pardon in the offing. All right. Again, we did a whole training on media literacy over the course of an entire year in 2024, actually in 2023 as well. And I just have to remind everybody that it is in circumstances, emergent circumstances, crisis circumstances, and breaking news circumstances that there is likely to be additional disinformation seeded into the public sphere. All right. So please, patience, caution, and don't trust the FBI. I think that's kind of a given in this era, but we'll see what else we learn about this. All right. And I'm going to say one other thing. Anonymous sources in this era, particularly anonymous sources that are from inside this administration, should be considered with extreme caution, even if their reports are being reported in mainstream media. All right. Again, one of my biggest complaints about this era is that venues like the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN will simply repeat talking points that have been given to them by the administration without any analysis, will repeat things that they have been told without fact checking them. And so again, assume that they are not telling the truth unless and until it's proven otherwise. All right. So we will see what happens with this, but I'm sure this is going to be the story at the top of everybody's newsfeed for the remainder of the day, which is too bad because there's actually some really interesting things happening on Capitol Hill today. So articles of impeachment are going to be introduced today against Pete Hegseth. They are being introduced by Democratic Representative Shri. I'm going to screw up his last name. I think it's Thanadar from Michigan. And I will just say that this is something that was signaled by that representative yesterday. I am truly impressed that someone was willing to buck the tide, because Hakeem Jeffries, as we all know, and we have discussed here on this broadcast, said that there wasn't going to be any impeachment proceedings. It's very important that someone is trying to introduce this. Now the question is, who's going to get behind it? Okay. And again, I'm going to mention that it encompasses several sets of conduct. The articles of impeachment will concern the Signal chat leak of classified information, but also will concern murder and conspiracy to murder on the basis of the boat bombing on September 2nd. So this is, again, another moment where it is a very good idea to pick up the phone and call your reps. This is particularly true today if you have Democratic Party reps, but I would try the Republican ones as well. Let them know, you don't have to identify who you vote for or who you support, that you think that Pete Hegseth should be investigated, held accountable, and impeached for the double tap strike on that boat. Again, there's not really any debate in the military ethics realm of whether or not this was lawful. It wasn't. And I also have to point out that you can go back and watch the broadcast that I did yesterday about the fact that there are huge debates happening right now about whether even the initial bombings are legal. In fact, I would argue that they are not under international law. We're not at war, right? This isn't even a war crime. It's just straight murder. It's a crime against humanity. Elie Mystal wrote a great column, by the way, in The Nation about this yesterday, also about the fact that it's murder. He could be arrested and charged with murder. So again, I just want to mention that, this is happening today, and it is happening simultaneous to the admiral, who they are now throwing under the bus, testifying in a closed hearing on Capitol Hill this morning. Now, there is some unfortunate news about this, okay, which is that the admiral appears to be all in on Trump. There was some news last night that a statement was going to be released from the admiral to the effect that the men who were struggling to survive after the initial boat bombing, who were literally clinging to wreckage in the middle of the Atlantic on the verge of drowning for an hour, were, in the admiral's view, still engaged in attempting to traffic drugs, because the piece of wreckage that they were hanging on to apparently also contained what he claimed was fentanyl. We have no evidence of this, by the way. This is all just like a statement, okay? So again, I want to just mention to everyone that none of this smells right. And that's, again, a huge understatement. The idea that men stranded in the Atlantic, clinging to wreckage, on the verge of drowning, would somehow still be arguably in the course of drug smuggling, which doesn't even justify their murder anyway, which in ordinary circumstances would only have resulted in boarding a boat to inspect it, deserved to be bombed to death in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean after an hour, is an appalling claim of events. So, again, I really quite truly think that impeachment of Hegseth is necessary here, and he is not the only one. As I said yesterday, there is a really serious need here for an investigation into the entire chain of command. Everybody who was involved in these decisions. Hegseth himself has said he was in the room watching this while this particular bombing went down. It's not like he was out of the loop, and he is the Secretary of Defense, sad though it may be. So, again, we have yet to see what's going to emerge from this particular set of articles of impeachment being introduced. And again, I have to remind everybody, they start in committee, they have to be voted out of committee, then they have to be voted on the floor of the House of Representatives. If they pass by a simple majority, they are conveyed to the Senate, where there is a trial, and then a vote of a 2/3 majority is necessary to remove Pete Hegseth. Now, let me just say one thing. The outcome of this is still within the control of the general public. While it is certainly the case that the Republicans will try to shut this down, we have very recent examples of situations where a handful of Republicans were able to just shift the narrative entirely. Specifically, I'm talking about the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So we don't need that many, and again, I have to point out the slimmest of slim majorities right now in the House of Representatives. So make your phone calls on impeachment today. Demand that your reps impeach Pete Hegseth. And we'll see what happens next with that. Okay, we had a question today. Those of you who've been with me for a long time now know that from time to time I have to put back on my ex-Columbia law professor hat and explain things to you all again. Somebody asked today on the Patreon feed about whether or not Trump could be impeached for being incompetent. And the answer to that is no. All right. So the impeachment clause of the Constitution only allows impeachment for bribery, treason, and high crimes and misdemeanors. It is not the avenue through which an incapacitated president can be removed. That avenue is the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now, as a refresher, or for the newbies who are here who maybe have never had this explained to you, the way that the 25th Amendment works is that the vice president, in conjunction with a majority of, it's not in the language of the cabinet, but this is what it's assumed to be in this era, a majority of the cabinet have to notify Congress that the president is unfit to serve and they are removing him and the vice president is taking over. There is then a window of time where the president gets to contest this, and the outcome, because this has never been tested, is unknown from there, okay? I will just tell you again that I think, just in the same way that we have been talking on this broadcast for a very, very long time about the fact that J.D. Vance cannot hold together the MAGA coalition, that he is universally despised by his former Senate colleagues, that he lacks basic charisma, among other things, is in and of itself a political reason why we will not see the 25th Amendment invoked. Again, it would take an extraordinary amount of willpower and political juice, because he'd have to get all these crazy MAGA people in the cabinet on his side. I mean, like Linda McMahon, currently herself under indictment for conspiracy to sex traffic as the head of the Department of Education, is not going to cooperate with the removal of Donald Trump. RFK Jr., not going to cooperate with the removal of Donald Trump. Marco Rubio, not likely to cooperate in the removal of Donald Trump. We all saw what happened in that cabinet meeting 2 days ago where he fell asleep, right? Do any of those people strike you as people who are going to come together to remove the president? Nope. So one of the things that I want people to consider here is that, there are other more likely to be effective means that need to be leveraged here. And again, I do have to remind everybody that if there is something medically incapacitating that happens to him, the 25th Amendment can be invoked to put the vice president in charge. This is, in fact, what has happened historically for very brief windows of time when, for instance, a president needed surgery or when Ronald Reagan was shot. Now, power was handed back to the president upon waking up from surgery or when he recovered from that attempted murder. But nonetheless, it is extremely unlikely here, unless there is a truly incapacitating physical issue with Donald Trump, like we're talking like a stroke or a massive coronary event, that the 25th Amendment would be invoked. Okay. And so I really honestly think it will not be invoked the entire time that he is in office unless he's no longer with us. So I will just let everybody know that the more effective way to start working to have him removed is, one, by working, sorry, I just bumped my mic, working on the 2026 midterms, because if we take back the House and we flip the Senate, even if we don't flip it to a 2/3 majority, there still will be a much easier uphill battle to trying to impeach him again. All right. And so that is part of what needs to happen. And then I also cannot ever neglect to tell you all that public pressure around issues like, for instance, Hegseth, public pressure around issues like Trump's incapacity can lead your representatives to take action. I am, again, very disappointed right now in both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible to push our reps in favor of, particularly people on the House Judiciary Committee, opening an impeachment investigation into Donald Trump. We don't know what's gonna hit. Again, I have to remind you all, nobody can predict the future. And so we have to try literally everything, every tool that we have in our toolkit to try to change the direction of the country in whatever way we can. Nobody knows how the dominoes are gonna fall, okay? But I would not be relying on the 25th Amendment for anything. Again, like nobody in this cabinet, unlike the cabinet in Trump 1.0, has any sense of loyalty to the Constitution, any sense of loyalty to the country. The people who have remained are themselves deeply disturbed and unstable individuals, and their only loyalty is to Donald Trump. They would not be in those positions were that not the case. So I just want to remind everybody, we are heading into 2026 before too long, and it's a good moment to start considering what you are planning to do over the next 11 months to make sure that we take back the House and that we flip the Senate. And that's not even including all the local races that are going to need all of our attention, because reminder, things like collaboration with ICE, things like sanctuary city status, things like trans rights protections happen at the state and local level much more than at the federal. Okay. So there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done. And yes, I know we are like flowing into the holiday season, but it is a really good time to do some conscious thinking about what you're going to do next year. And I will just mention while I am here that many of you know that I also run something called the Ripple Effect Institute, which is part strategy incubator, part think tank for people who are really building out large scale efforts to create social justice and change. We are onboarding people right now for the 2026 cycle. If you are interested in joining us or learning more about it, I am going to post a link up here to book a free course consultation with a member of our team if you're interested in finding out more about it. All right. And that will get you in the door to talk to someone about whether or not you're a good fit to do that. All right. And this is really for people who are committed and feeling the call to working on larger scale projects. The people that we have inside the Ripple Effect Institute already are doing things like building out citywide community garden projects, battling on behalf of Planned Parenthood in southern states, running for office. We have people who are running for the House and running for local offices inside the Ripple Effect Institute. We have people working on enormous large-scale creative projects as a form of resistance. So again, if this is something that feels like it might call to you, you can feel free to book a strategy call. I will also make sure that's dropped in the comments below this video. All right, that's it for today. Like I said, I think the pipe bomber is going to be top news for all day today. If this person is even the pipe bomber, again, extreme caution is warranted. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. Please like this broadcast. Drop me a comment if you're watching after the fact. I will be here tomorrow. Also, we are running a promo for our Patreon subscribers. You guys keep this broadcast afloat. So please head on over there and become a paid subscriber for as little as $5 a month, or you can get 20% off annual memberships right now using the code FALL2025. You can also gift them as holiday presents. Please do that if it calls to you, okay? Yeah, I think that's it for today. I will be here tomorrow, and our Patreon subscribers will get a bonus broadcast tomorrow afternoon. All right, everyone. I will see you then. Thanks, Laura, for saying the Ripple Effect Institute is amazing. Laura is on the inside as well. She is a huge election activist in southern New Jersey. So in any event, hope you'll consider joining us. All right, my friends, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Take care. That's our show for today, folks. Thanks so much for being here at Resistance Live. To get more out of the show, including bonus broadcasts, the answers to all your most pressing political and legal questions, and way more, head on over to patreon.com/resistancelive and become a paid subscriber. And don't forget to hit subscribe here on your favorite podcasting platform to make sure that you never miss an episode. See you next time.